Welcome to Real Talk, Real Wellness with Alicia. I'm Alicia, a woman's holistic wellness practitioner, and this is where we get real about what it truly takes to feel well mentally, physically, and emotionally. Let's start. So I've been mulling over something for a while now, and because of the nature of my work, this is something that comes up again and again for me. I have women sending me articles, research, screenshots, reels, podcasts, all sorts of things. One week it's a particular herb that's being talked about for weight loss. Another time it's a food that's supposed to support blood sugar balance. Then it's a supplement, a pill, or a protocol that's suddenly being linked to energy, hormones, metabolism, or longevity. You know, there's just so much information out there, and this doesn't just show up in my one-to-one work with women. It's everywhere in the wider wellness space, you know, the wellness universe that exists online. You know, new advice, new studies, new must-haves, you know, constantly being shared and reshared. So, you know, what this tells me is that women are trying, you know, women are doing. They're reading, they're researching, they're listening, learning, they're committing to doing better for themselves. You know, they are showing up for their wellness in ways that they know how. However, many still feel like something isn't quite right. You know, they're not quite hitting it. It's not landing. And it's not because they're not motivated, not because they're not willing, but because much of the information is shared as if it should work the same way for everybody, you know, for everyone. And that, for me, is where the problem begins. We do not live identical lives. We don't move through the world with the same responsibilities, the same support, or the same history stored in our bodies. So when wellness advice is offered without context, it often just misses the mark. You know, it just ends up being wrong. You know, context includes how a woman was raised, what she was taught about her body, what she believes she's allowed to prioritize. It includes her work demands, her relationships, her stress load, her sleep patterns, and the environment she lives in. You know, yes, biologically, we are largely similar, but we also have genetic variations. You know, different nervous system responses, different ways our bodies adapt to stress over time. You know, those differences matter. They shape how the body responds to food, movement, supplements, and lifestyle changes. So when women try to apply information without it being related back to their own life context, it can feel confusing, frustrating, when the results just don't match the promises. A lot of wellness advice assumes that women have the same time, the same energy, the same emotional capacity available. You know, it often assumes that adding more is always possible. But wellness doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens alongside work pressure, caregiving, emotional labor, financial stress, health concerns, hormonal changes. When those realities are not acknowledged, advice can quickly turn into big pressure. And when something doesn't work, women tend to sort of turn it inwards. They question themselves rather than questioning whether the approach ever truly fit their lives. In my case, or in many cases, should I say, the issue isn't effort. It's usually alignment. Wellness that doesn't take context into account isn't necessarily wrong, but it's incomplete. And incomplete approaches really lead to sustainable change. And this is exactly why I created Precision Wellness by Alicia. It's a woman-centered, context-led framework that looks at the whole picture rather than isolated symptoms or trends. It doesn't start with a rigid plan or a single solution. It starts with understanding the woman and the life that she lives in. Precision Wellness by Alicia looks at how different aspects of a woman's life interact with each other. Nutrition doesn't sit separately from stress. Sleep isn't disconnected from environment. Movement isn't removed from emotional capacity or nervous system health. Community connection and support are just as relevant as any physical intervention. You know, even when tools like genetic testing or DNA testing for wellness are used, they are never treated as a whole answer. They are simple. And they are one layer of insight, always placed within a wider context of the woman's lived experience. This method isn't built around trends or, quick fixes or pressure. It's built around understanding adaptability and sustainability. Wellness needs to work in real life and not just on a piece of paper in a plan. Something that's important for me to say is that this kind of work isn't designed to be rushed. I don't work with large numbers of one-to-one clients at the same time, and that's very intentional on my part. As I said, the work is layered. It happens while a woman is actively changing habits, adjusting routines, and responding to what her body and her life are showing her in real time. Some changes feel straightforward, Others bring up resistance, uncertainty, or emotion. So supporting women through that process means staying present, adjusting when something doesn't feel quite right, and making sense of what's unfolding rather than pushing through it. Wellness isn't about, handing over recommendations and stepping away as a practitioner. It's about walking alongside a woman while those recommendations meet her actual life. That level of support takes time and it deserves care. Another important part of contextual wellness is recognizing that no woman should be navigating her wellness alone. A women's wellness team may include healthcare providers, therapists, coaches, or other practitioners, and communication between those roles matter. Wellness works best when it's integrated rather than fragmented. I'll be speaking more about that, about wellness teams in future episodes, because that actually deserves a conversation in its own space. So if wellness has ever felt overwhelming, confusing, or difficult to maintain, I want you to understand this, okay? It may not be because you're doing something wrong. It may be because the approach never truly accounted for your context. Wellness isn't universal. Women aren't interchangeable, and your life matters in how your wellness is approached. So I want you to remember that wellness is not universal, and if you're doing something and it's not working for you the way it maybe worked for your friend, it might not be you. It's not you. That thing is just not for you. It's very much about being experimental with yourself. And me as a practitioner, it's my role to be beside you on that journey. So before we close, I want to leave you with 3 reflections to sit with, okay? First, what aspects of your life are currently influencing your wellness but rarely acknowledged? Second, where have you been trying to follow advice that doesn't truly fit your context? And third, what might wellness look like if it worked with your life rather than against it? Okay, so take your time with these, ladies. There's no rush. Share if you want to. That would be nice. And if this episode resonates with you, simply share it. And until next episode, take care, and I will speak to you soon.